Hello, hello. It's King Gabriel here live for our intuition specific Q&A. I hope that you got the email and you're here with me. We're going to dive into intuition today fully. All right, we're going to dive right in. And I have some amazing questions that came in that I believe will really forward the conversation. So I'd love to dive into this one with you. But before we dive in, as usual, but before we dive in, as usual, we're going to have a little meditation time, right? A quick little meditation, because that's the sync up, right? So I'm going to do a little 5 minute meditation with you. And from there, we will then dive into this Q&A, right? And we'll be properly aligned. So wherever you are, as long as you're not operating heavy machinery or doing something that requires your full attention, just take a second to relax, right? To relax. So sit into your seat if you're on a seat. If you're laying somewhere, make sure that you're extremely comfortable, but not so comfortable that you sleep. And just start to relax that body. Let the breath do the relaxing as well as you breathe. Feel as if the breath is moving into the places that need to relax. And as you exhale, the tension is being released through the breath. Just use that visual to relax you more deeply. Good. Relax the toes, the bases of the feet, the tops of the feet and ankles, the shins and calves. Relax the knees and the soft area behind them, the quads, the hamstring, the groins, pelvis, glutes. Breathe into the lower back. Feel the lower back open like a flower, its petals opening. Feel it opening. Relax the tummy and the middle back, the upper back, and the chest. And as you open the chest, the spine straightens a little bit. Good, let the spine straighten. It's not rigid, right? But it's naturally straight. It still keeps that S shape, right? But it's relaxed. Good, relaxed, and keeping the body up. Let the shoulders sink, the triceps, biceps, elbows, and forearms, the wrists, palms, fingers, fingertips, and thumbs. Good. Now, as the arms stretch down and relax, you can feel the pull on the collarbones. Let the collarbones relax and stretch down as well, and the neck is relaxed. If you need to move around a little bit to feel that, do that like a bobblehead a bit until you settle into place. Relax the jaws, the lower part and the upper, the hinge of the jaw in particular. Relax, not clenching, relaxing, releasing. The back of the head is relaxed. The brain itself, receptive, malleable, open, sponge-like. Relax the lips, relax the nostrils, the nose, the nasal cavity. If you can feel the sinuses, relax that space as well. Relax the area beneath the eyes, the glands beneath the eyes, the eyelashes, eyelids, and eyebrows. Relax the ears. Make sure they're not perched and intently listening, but open, allowing the sound to pass through without attaching to it or without trying to follow it. Just relax. Relax the forehead, make it tranquil, serene, clear. And then the scalp, relax the scalp. And with a command to yourself, to the body and the field surrounding, relax. And as the breath continues to flow, feel the body relaxing, almost going off into a sleep, a mid-sleep state, but the mind is clear, the mind is sharp. Body relaxed, mind sharp and clear. Just continue to relax. And realize that there is a natural calmness that's there. As you inhale, follow the breath to that space within you that's calm, that's still, that's centered. Despite all the activities of the day, all the things that you have to do, etc., there is this calm space. Feel into this calm space. And settle in there for a bit, settle into this space. Now, if anything arises as you're doing this, thoughts, mental conversation, some sort of concept you have or an idea, just let that go and feel right back into that center space that's calm, that's relaxed. Just feel right back into that space. Now I'm going to be silent for a few minutes. Just feel into that space. If you find your mind drifting or doing other things, taking a vacation or whatever, just come right back to that space and relax in that space where there's calm, where there's centeredness. Again, if the mind drifts, just bring it back to center. Now you have that quality of calmness with you. Just begin to feel back into the fingertips. Feel the fingers move, feel the toes move. Feel the temperature of the skin interacting with the room or space that you're in. Begin to hear the sounds around you again. Begin to smell the scents that are with you. And make your way back into that face, into those eyes. Make your way back. And as you make your way back, remember that this centered space is always within you, always accessible, always there. So begin to make your way forward, and we will dive into this Q&A today. It's the Q&A. We're diving into this intuition. So we had a few questions come in that I am eager to answer because they are meaningful questions, right? Meaningful questions. And when I say meaningful, I believe they'll really make a change in the perception of what intuition is, how you can use it, and begin to actually have some results regarding it, right? So the first question, which seems to be an obvious question, but I felt it's worth answering because when we talk about intuition, sometimes it can be a bit vague. It can be a bit vague. And I want to make it super clear. The question though was, what is spiritual intuition? Right? What is spiritual intuition? Not just what is intuition, but what is spiritual intuition? So this person is probably on a spiritual path of some sort, or looking at the difference from a perspective of someone who has intuition already, right? So the question fully was, what is spiritual intuition and how is it different from regular intuition? So yes, they're asking from that place. Right? Spiritual intuition, I would say, is a deeper form of insight. And it's connected to what we would call a higher power or source or spirit, God, creator, what you would call that, the universe, like some people would call it. It's going beyond the ordinary idea of gut feelings, right? Gut feelings is like a visceral reaction that you gain from your past experience, where your experience, and think about what gut reaction really is for a second here, and this is what people call intuition most of the time. But it's based on your past, based on your knowing, based on the patterns that you've observed in life. You already have an idea of the most likely thing to happen. Okay? It's like, let's say your kids are riding down the road and they're on a bike and you see them make a little swerve to ditch a hole. Based on your past experience, you can see that as, oh, they're probably going to land in the bush over there. But then you could also be concerned that, oh, they could probably fall on the gravel, right? So the one that is most likely is the one that you will probably respond to, right? You might find yourself sprinting there to grab them real quick, or you might find yourself just letting it be because you know they'll be all right. But either way, your reaction in that moment, right, comes as a sort of impulse and it has to happen quick. That's sort of sometimes what people mix up with intuition. And it's a gut reaction or a response to our past learning. We've learned a lot of things in life already. Just by living life, you learn. You can't help but learn in life. Things happen and you learn, right? You're like, oh, I'm not going to do that again. You know, you walk down a road 5 times and you fall in a hole. By the sixth time, hopefully you realize there's a hole and you won't jump in that same hole again or fall in that same hole again, right? So this is what happens with us. And we sometimes call it bad intuition. That's not really intuition per se. That's a deeper learning and it's using your mind, which is great because you want that mind to work. You don't want to shut that off completely, right? But it's not really the thing that can guide you long term because it has a short view. It has a view based on your life and your perspective about life. Whereas intuition that we're talking about, or spiritual intuition that we're talking about here, is going to that point beyond just ourselves, beyond our knowing. For instance, and this is a good example of it in regular life. There are some people they call savants. Some go as far as calling them idiot savants, and the idiot part they use because it seems like they shouldn't know this based on their learning, or they haven't been schooled in any way that allows them to think outside of um, what your average person would think. But what we're saying about this, the savants are people who have the answers to questions without having any idea how they got that answer, right? So you ask them a big mathematical calculation, and they will give you it straight down to the final decimal point without knowing any form of math that was taught for that to happen, without using a calculator either, right? So when we have people doing things like that, it lets you know the computing power of whatever we are, right? If we're thinking about making quantum computers and all these things that we're doing right now, really, we already have that, right? That's already us. We can compute things on a higher level, but something along the way tends to block that from happening for most of us, for whatever reason, right? And the whatever reason is usually our learning, right? Our learning as we walk through life and we start to limit ourselves through our beliefs, etc. We start to shrink the capacity that we have to just do things without necessarily knowing a step-by-step way to get there, right? Because sometimes you just know, and you just know that you know, right? So this is good. This is good because when we're talking about spiritual intuition, we're talking about going beyond the limits that we ourselves have made to step into a space where, and let me check the questions here just to make sure that I'm flowing and that you guys are seeing me. I'm just going to check on Facebook on my phone right here to make sure that I'm in there. Okay, good. It looks like it's streaming and right there. So yeah, so talking about spiritual intuition, we're moving from that space of past learning into a place of present possibility, right? And when I say present possibility, I'm meaning you kind of have an idea of what could happen in any situation when you look at a situation. If you've observed long enough, you already have an idea of what's going to happen because there's no time that you're expecting, for instance, to watch an apple tree and eventually see an apple just fall up, right? Nobody expects an apple to fall up. Why don't we expect an apple to fall up? Because based on our past experience, still, we know that things fall down, right? Or what we call down, right? And obviously, up and down is a concept. We know that too. But either way, we expect it to fall in a specific direction. Based on that, we can calculate, right, the probabilities of it falling and hitting a branch or it falling and hitting the ground directly, etc. Right? And this sort of is what we work with, but the spiritual intuition goes a step beyond that. It's outside of the realm of viewing it in terms of singular outcomes and viewing it along the entire timeline in a sense as to what will become of this. It's a larger view is what I'm saying. It's a larger view, and sometimes the rational mind or the mind that's working in terms of calculations like I just said is not able to even understand how we came to that conclusion. In fact, the act of trying to understand it with the actual limited mind seems to put a limit on the whole idea of the intuition altogether also. This is why, for instance, I'll just jump into this little topic here to answer this question a bit more thoroughly. We talk about women's intuition. Why was it called women's intuition for all that time? Because there is a belief that women tend to have a better development of this skill than most men. But that's only because, and this is what I propose about it, women were more open to the idea of it happening. Whereas most of the men at that time were more focused on strategic possibilities and calculations and looking at things from the idea of this is what can happen and this is what is least likely to happen. And I use my rational and logic to work that out. So this is what it comes to. Whereas the women at that time were more dreamers, more open to possibilities without even trying to necessarily figure out how it would happen or what would be the factors contributing to it happening or any of that stuff. It was just, oh, I just feel this way about this. Key right there, feel. I just feel this way about this. There was more feeling involved. Men are taught at a very early stage to shut down any sorts of feelings, right? Kids don't cry, or male kids don't necessarily cry outright. Girls are allowed to do that. Why? Because it's not the manly thing to do, etc. So that's a slight distinction in allowing those feelings to flow and allowing the interpretation or the information to come through those feelings, which is huge, right? Feelings are huge. Think of how powerful your feelings really are, right? Your logic is your logic and it lets you see your way out of challenging situations, but the feeling itself is an immense thing. When you feel a genuine and authentic feeling run through you, it's like a surge of power. It is a surge of power that runs through you. Anger, for instance, most people, when they have anger, they're blowing up to like 100, right? They're out of this. They're rage, it's like 100, right? They're all out there, and it feels bigger than them. It feels bigger than them most of the time, right? Most people you talk to about that, they'll let you know that. And then on the other side of that too, you have people who will, feel certain feelings like sadness, right? Or joy. Joy is a big one most of the time. And all the other feelings that go in between there, right? And it's a mishmash of feelings, but each one of them is powerful in its own way. And it drives us into a certain different state, right? The feelings drive us to different states. Hence, if you really want to look at what spiritual intuition is, it's paying attention to your feeling response to what you're looking at, right? What you're looking at. And when I say what you're looking at, not only with your eyes, but with your mind. When you are asking a question, when you are looking at something that's going on in your life and you want an intuitive insight into it, what you're really looking for is a way to dive into what that is and to see or observe your feeling about it, because that's information on it. That's information on what state am I heading into regarding this. And sometimes way before, you can tell where you are just by seeing your feeling about that thing. Okay? For instance, and I'm going to use this example because it was just obvious to me. It may not have been as obvious to everyone, I guess, but I'm going to say it. I saw something in the Olympics recently, and I won't call a name just to not put anybody out there like that, but I saw someone ask a question. They posed a question to one of the athletes. Are you going to break the world record? And the response was this. And then started to talk. And I just want you to catch that. Just the idea of looking off like this, you're trying to capture a vision of it, number one. But at the same time, there's a question there about it. Because if it was a ready answer where you already felt that thing and you knew that thing, you would just respond, yeah, I'm doing that, right? You would be right here with it. But the fact that you had to visit somewhere else to come back to then talk about it, which is what took place there, it's saying that it's not top of mind, top of heart, not in the moment, not now. It's somewhere else. It's not here. It's not stored right here, right now, in this moment with you, right? So that's interesting to see, because if you look at things from that perspective, how many things are we headed towards, right, that we already kind of know because we know the feeling that we have about it, but then we try to muster enough strength to overpower what we're actually feeling about it, right? Think about that for a second. That's what we do most of the time. We have this thing going on, we know it's there, but then we try to paste over it as much as possible. How about we look at what's there and transform what's there, right? Which is what we can do with practice and with a little work, obviously. And this is what the spiritual intuition is. It's the ability to feel into what you're really feeling in this moment, right here, right now. It's kind of like mindfulness a bit. Feel into what you're feeling here right now. And if necessary, to align that, right, with a certain desire that you have, aligning it with that, right? So understand that it's imaginative and creative in nature too. It's not set, it's not fixed. Your spirit is not set and fixed. Your spirit is in motion. Spirit, energy, evolving, changing, transforming, transmuting things around you. Why would it be set? So this is something to observe and to know. So answer to the question, what is spiritual intuition? It is that ability to feel into what you're really feeling, and if necessary, make the transformation to allow you to have the desired experience. Okay, that's what it is. So I hope that answers that question fully for that person. I know I dive in a bit there and went on different angles. I think that's useful. Okay, so I have many other questions here, and I want to dive into a certain batch because they intrigued me. These intrigued me. Someone asked me, what's the fastest way to start trusting your intuition? Because trust is big a lot of the time for people, right? And by the way, if you're here and you have questions and you're commenting or chatting, I will look here. I'm looking in the comments right now, and I'll look on Facebook as well. If you have any questions that you want me to answer live right now, I will answer them live right now and put them above the questions that have been sent in, mainly because I want to make sure that those that are present and showed up get their questions answered, right? So I have both running, and I'll make sure and keep checking ever so often so that I can answer all the questions that are here. Okay. So I'm diving back into the next question here now. Next question. What's the fastest way to start trusting your intuition? Right? And this is something that I said a lot of people struggle with. Like, can I just trust this thing? Like, is it even real? Right? Is intuition even real? Some people ask that question, right? It's real. It's very real. Right? So I would say starting small is one of the things that help. Because like in anything that you're practicing, if you want to develop a healthy looking, fit looking body, you start doing smaller sets. I remember there was a time where I was off for a long time and I just started back by saying, you know what, I'm just going to do, I believe it was 100 push-ups a day I started with. Yeah, I said, I'm just going to do 100 push-ups a day. Right? Not that I ever completely stop. I always do something. I always do something. But either way, at that time, there was a gap. It was when the kids were born and everything. And we hardly had time to sleep or anything like that. So I was going downhill fast. I was getting tired, right? And that's just what it was because there was no sleep. Twins back to back, they're up, everybody up and all that. And I remember I just devoted. I was saying, you know what? I'm not getting a chance to do what I used to do now, but I could at least do 100 push-ups a day. And I would find time. Sometimes it was 1 o'clock in the morning, all kind of crazy stuff. But I was doing it just to keep in mind that that's what I wanted to do. And sometimes that's what you want to do. So start small is what I'm saying. Start very small. Start on something that's not going to be like life or death serious for you, right? Get something small like what type of breakfast should I eat? What type of ice cream should I have? If I should have ice cream at all, and those types of things, right? Just work with small things like that and work on your intuition around that, your feeling around that, how you respond to that. And then by building up with these low risk decisions, right, you tend to develop a sense of comfort with it bit by bit. And then from there, as you build confidence, your intuitive feelings start to move towards higher stakes, right? You move towards higher stakes. You move towards things that are a bit more meaningful naturally, right? Because you can trust it a bit more just by the practice and the success that you've had on the smaller things, right? And then from there, you then feel more comfortable putting bigger things in the hands of your intuition, right? It's like a little sister or something, or let's say you had a brother or something, and you start off trusting them with this and this, and then after a while, you feel like you can trust them with more because they're close to you and they're coming through for you all the time, right? They always come through for you. So then you start to dap them up and you're like, yeah, okay, we good. I could trust you to do this, and you give them more trust, right? So just like that, that's how the intuition works. It's like having that person that you can trust a bit more. You get that happening, and that's where we start, right? So we start with starting small. The next thing you can do while starting small is find a practice group or a supportive program or something that is some sort of group that you get together with that does that, right? Because as you do it and you do it in a group, you get to see evidence of it with others and you get to see your own thing come through the practices that you're doing. So it builds confidence quicker, right? So right there, you're going to trust a bit more. You're going to find techniques that work for you. And so by finding these techniques that work for you by sampling and working with groups as well, you tend to trust a bit more because as you do those techniques and you have success or others have success, it's telling your mind and telling yourself, hey, I can do this. Hey, this is actually possible. Hey, this is not just make believe. Even if it wasn't you that had it happen, sometimes seeing somebody else have it happen is enough for you to start thinking, maybe that's possible for me too. And so people move closer to it in that way. We've seen that a lot, especially in Thrive Evolution. We've seen people start off at ground zero saying they just started and all this stuff. And then a few weeks later, they're like, wow, I didn't know I could do this, right? And they have evidence of it and they have things come through and they discover things. And the people in their group as well, their cohort, move forward with them too because they're observing it and learning from it and saying, wow, if that's possible for her, then it's possible for me. They try it on and they have success. So that's one way that I work. Start small, number one. Number two, tune into your body. People talk about this a lot, right? Pay close attention to the physical sensations that you're having as well. That's information, right? Your body tells you things. If you really listen to your body, and when I say listen to your body, I don't mean become totally engulfed in physical sensations, but Just listen to the things that are like alarms that go off and pay attention, right? When you're thirsty, how does your mouth feel? Your mouth feels dry and choppy, right? And you know that you need water, right? You know that. That's information. So tune into your body in a sense and see what's happening. Right? Before you make the decision, see how you feel. Are your palms sweaty? Right? You know, and I'm not saying look for these specific symbols, but are your palms sweaty would be like an indicator that, well, maybe I'm kind of nervous. Pay attention to your breathing. How are you breathing? Are you in a fear state? Are you in a present state? You know, are you tensed or relaxed? Are you tensed? Are you finding that you're clenching your jaw? If you're clenching your jaw, you're tight, you're tense about the situation, right? So by paying attention to these little signs, and these are just random signs that I put out there, but they still matter, you can have some idea of where you are in relationship to the desire that you have and whether you're going to fulfill it or not. So tune into the body to a certain degree, and that will give you information, right? Intuition often communicates through subtle things, right? Like the gut feeling we were talking about earlier. It can be through the gut feeling as well. The gut feeling can be a good thing. You can learn from that, right? If you feel a sense of calm there, then you know you're not in a fear state. But if you feel constriction, you feel tightness, you feel butterflies, and butterflies is one you have to pay attention to on both sides, because sometimes you feel butterflies when you're in a lovey-dovey adoration state, like puppy love, like people call it, and sometimes you feel butterflies as in a reaction to something that could potentially go wrong, a fear state. So you have to decipher for yourself which one of those you're actually feeling as energy. And there are ways to decipher that. As we go along, we'll talk more about that. But tuning into your body, I would say step 2. So start small, tune into your body, practice mindfulness. And mindfulness sounds like a big word that only maybe people in certain sects or certain thought systems would do. No, mindfulness is just being present to what's going on right here, right now, right? It doesn't have to be overdone or overcooked. It's just being paying attention to what's happening right here, right now. So the question that was asked of the athlete that I spoke before, and the answer came forward as, hey, are you going to break the world record? The answer was, look away, turn back, and then say, well, and the conversation itself was even invalid at that point because the energy had already spoken. And this is something you want to pay attention to. That is the body right there at work, just for you to know, right? That's the body response because the body did something. And the something it did gave a representation or gave an idea of what the energy that was present was. You didn't have to wait for the answer to know that, right? It was already known. And this is sometimes something that we miss, right? So practice mindfulness, practice being here and present right now, right here. Have your quiet time for reflection if you need to, for meditation. Clear your mind. Clearing your mind can be key. Why? Because when you clear your mind, all the things of the past that you would have focused on and put into that space right there, right then, are now not there. So your response is a close to clear response. Now we have specific techniques for clearing the mind and techniques for clearing the channel itself, the energetic channel that is present within us. We have techniques to do that. And that definitely helps because it allows you to not be viewing things from some past idea, past experience, or some hereditary type thinking, which happens to us based on where we grow up or based on the family we're around. And it's not necessarily going to be genetic. Sometimes it's because they've had instances where people have joined other families, like adopted families, and taken on some of their, I don't want to say this word really, but some of their illnesses and all that stuff. They take it on too, and they never had a predisposition for that based on their genetics. They just took it on based on the fact that the same thoughts, the same energy, the same type of mentality was being practiced, and so it developed certain outcomes, right? So if you can practice mindfulness, practice being present more than anything else and not going back to the past and letting the past govern your future, then you'll find that you have a clearer channel. Right? So a calm mind is more receptive to intuitive thoughts and insights, right? And if you can distinguish what it feels like to be calm versus what it feels like to think you're feeling calm but really be on hyperspeed, then you can kind of sift your way in there and subtly pick up on the energies that are necessary to give you the outcomes, the desires, the thoughts, the feelings that you'd like to experience. Right? The next thing you can do. So we're on 4 now, right? The first one, as I said, was start small, The second one, tune into your body. The third, practice mindfulness. And the fourth, reflect on your experience, right? Now, I know this might seem contradictory, but you reflect on your experience to see where there may have been any limiting or biased idea that would have come into play, right? Because when I look at certain situations, the first thing I'm going to look at it through is my lens, the lens of my past, as I view myself at the point in time. However, what if I can see that influence and realize that I am actually biased, right? Or I have a predisposition to choose a specific outcome based on my preferences in life, then I have to look at that a bit closer, right? So I want to reflect on my past experiences and see where I'm really choosing from. And from that point, I can then make the necessary tweaks, right? I can then make the necessary tweaks because what I've come to is realizing that whatever it is the past held for me, right, was good up to a point. But if it's not going to continue to serve me going forward and not help me to be the highest and best version of myself, then some of it is worth letting go, right? Am I willing to let it go? Well, it's a question everybody has to ask themselves, right? So you would be the person who knows that for yourself. But reflecting on it lets you see it clearly. So that as you see it clearly, you can choose whether it's something to continue or something worth letting go of. Taking immediate action is the next step to that. As you get the intuition, right? You get that feeling and you know it's there. If you take immediate action on it real time, you're strengthening your trust in it as well. Because then you're not saying, I have to think about this. I have to think about what I thought, right? You're not thinking about what you thought. You're feeling it. You're feeling where it lies. If it feels aligned, you take action on it, which then it sends a signal to you. I respect you. I trust you. I listen to you. So then your intuition itself will start to give you more information. It will start to feed you more because now you're open. You've opened the gates. And if you open the gates, the energy can flow through that gate easily. Right? And gates is a really adequate way to describe this because it kind of is like gates. The energy passes through the gates. So that's really what it looks like. Take immediate action if you can. And then this is a step that most people tend to miss. I want you to hear this step because this step is like key to developing any sort of skill, whether it's dream work or intuition or anything you're working with. Document it if possible. Document it. Now, it could be a video that you do, it could be that you write it, right? However, you decide to document it, you type it up on a file or whatever, just document it. Why? Because if you document it, you can then go back and look at it again another time when you've forgotten about it and be like, oh, yes, it was right. And I have a story about that actually, documenting it. This time I believe it was, I can't remember the year, honestly. It may have been 2005 or something like that. Yeah. No, later than that. 2011. Yes, 2011. Now I remember. 2011. There's this thing called futureme.com that you get to type future messages to yourself that will be delivered in your email like 5 years later, 10 years later, or whatever. And in the email that I had, I wrote to myself, I was writing to myself, hey, having a good day, thinking of this, etc. But the main part of the email that I wrote, right, was tell the twins hi, right? Now, at that time, the twin thing was just speculation because, nobody could know for a fact, according to regular thinking, nobody could know for a fact that they're going to have twins. They could just guess about it, right? That wasn't the case because 10 years later, when I did open it, it did apply perfectly. The twins were out there in the room. We have twins, Chase and Cruz, like you guys know, right? And so when I said that and I look back on that, because that was from my past self to me, I had to give him a little salute. Good thinking, good idea, you did that. But at the same time that happened, it's interesting because you could say that's luck or chance or whatever, but the proof, as they say, is in the pudding. It turned out to be a real thing, right? So if I didn't document that by sending it to myself, I would have never seen that and known that. I would have just been, oh, well, I used to think about that back in the day, but I wouldn't even thought about it. It just wouldn't have been a thing at all, right? That's the truth about it. So when we document things, we can look back and test it. And testing is key in any scientific process, which this is as well. In any process that you're doing, you're going to want to have information that you could verify or validate what you're thinking with. It strengthens you. It does strengthen you. If you test it and you fail, I know it can feel bad, but then you have room for improvement. But if you just never test it at all, then what is that? It's just you having a wonderful fantasy about something and never ever proving it to yourself. So then it's never real. It's just stuff. It's just stuff. And a lot of people in the spiritual world nowadays just do things from that place, right? Everything is just stuff. And so it's never really real to them. It never becomes real. That's why we focus so much on practice and focus on ways of making this stuff real. And Thrive Evolution in particular, everything has a practice to go with it. Everything is not heavily structured, but structured enough so that you can go back and verify it. So that when you go back and you look at your goal, you know, oh, this was the step I took and this was the step I took. And look, it happened. Awesome, it happened. Then nobody could tell you, oh, it happened by luck or chance. No, this was the process I went through to create this. This was the process I went through to feel into this. This is the process I went through to become this, right? And then that's that. Anybody could say what they want after that, right? Anybody can say things about it, but you know the process that you went through. You documented it, you took it step by step, and you came up with the answer for that. And then you know for yourself that you can trust yourself in that process from there forward, right? So it is a scientific approach, and I know science might sound a bit unspiritual, etc., right? But no, everything has to be a process. It's there's value in process. There is value in having structure. Right? I had to learn that the hard way. I wasn't the most structured person most of the time, but I came to love structure because with structure, you have evidence, you have proof, you have testing, you have things that can actually show you that you're progressing. You have evolution, right? Thrive Evolution could not be Thrive Evolution unless we were taking steps forward to improve, to be even better, right? So these are the things that matter. So I'm going to call out those few steps again for that question because I took my time to answer this one. Start small. Start small. Don't start with the biggest thing ever and say, oh, I'm going to figure out how to win $63 billion right now. You know, that might be a bit much. That might feel like a bit much for you. You wouldn't believe that you can do that off the bat. Most people won't. Some people will. Some people won't. So you start with something small, right? You start with something small. And then tune into your body. Tune into the sensations that you're feeling. Tune into the vibrations that are coming in. Mental vibrations, right? Tune into how you're reacting, how you're responding. From there, practice the mindfulness, practice the space, practice feeling yourself calm and centered. It's like your balance point you're trying to find, right? You want to find what neutral is. Because if you have neutral, then you know left and right from neutral. But if you don't have neutral, then you don't know left or right. It's just all motion, right? So learn that, practice the mindfulness, reflect on past experiences where necessary, right? Take immediate action and document your intuition. Document it. You want to document it. And I know a lot of us have resistance to that. Most people in this spiritual conversation, they're like, what? Document it? What? Why does it have to be structured? You know, it feels all analytical and people say you're in your head, right? You know, to a certain degree, all of it is imagination, right? Everything takes place through imagination. And imagination comes to you in the form of vision. And vision comes to you in the form of using this upper area, right? Which is kind of in your head still, right? If you think about it, all links to that headspace. So that if that is what's happening, it's wise to use that too, right? Not block that out and act like it doesn't exist when you know fully well half your day is spent up there or 3/4 of your day is spent up there. Work it in, use it, use the skill that you have. There is rational thinking that takes place in all of this, or else everybody would just do craziness all the time, right? Some people have intuitive impulses to do things that are morally and ethically wrong. And when I say wrong, not serving the highest and the best for everyone. So if you have an impulse like that without any sort of rational thinking or reasoning, you would just go ahead and do crazy things that could be harmful to you and others, right? So this is why it exists. It exists because it is that space where you can think something through, right? Both of them work hand in hand. I'm not saying get all heady and go up in your head, but use both so that when you do decide to take action, you're taking action that you're confident in. You're taking action that you're sure of because it got the stamp of approval from the entire system, not just from one part, right? So again, I hope that makes sense. I hope that question was answered well enough to really continue us forward here, right? And let me look in the comments real quick to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, I see something about workbooks there if anybody wants it. Let me take a look here. Okay, good. I have a question from Zoe, it looks like. I think it's a question, but I'll read it anyway, just in case. I read somewhere that holding a body part such as your hand when having an intuitive experience, you can train your intuition by holding that same part to have more intuitive experiences. That is 100% true, or at least 99.5% true. Here's why. That's an anchor. What you're talking about there is an anchor, right? And what an anchor is a place that you create a physical sensation is. This is a physical anchor. There are different types of anchors, but this is a physical anchor. For instance, if you were to hold, let's say, a trigger point in your palm or something like that continuously while you're doing the having an intuitive experience, right? What you're doing there is associating this feeling, this physical sensation with that outcome, right? With that experience. So then sometimes when you're just on your merry way, if you are to squeeze that place again, ooh, this feels so good when I squeeze it. But when you squeeze it, right, it would take you right back to that very moment that you made that decision or the feeling that you had when you made that decision, which opens the space for that intuitive gateway again to be open. So you can open it through a physical sensation by practice. Those are one of the practices that we definitely do. Okay, locking in with anchors is huge. We use those. I used to use anchors all the time. In fact, I still have a few anchors active that no one will ever see because I have them in special places where it's not visible. And I chose that on purpose because if you have anchors that everyone can see, it might interrupt you a little bit, right? Like when you're doing it, like let's say your anchor was, okay, do a special dance or something like that, right? So I said that was your anchor and flip your hand around your head or something. And everybody saw that. It would be so obvious, it'd be weird, right? It'd be like, it would disrupt you. So, you choose subtle anchors. Maybe something like scratching your ear this way or something like that. Too many people might not have a problem with it, but you have the same sensation from it. And so that's just a smart thing to do. Anchors are great. I see another question. How does using mudras have an impact? Hi, Cody. Good to see you. Good to hear from you. Yes, mudras are like anchors. It's exactly the same thing, right? Mudras, what they do is they link you into specific meridians, right? Like in Qigong, which we study as well, there are specific, there are specific meridians, right, that relates to function of the organs and many other things in the system that's a whole science by itself. So I could go into that, but that would be a long time talking about that. I could give a printout of that sometime for everyone. But there are specific meridians that these points are linked to. And so when you start using mudras, you could do it intentionally and decide to affect a specific meridian that you're looking to work with, like let's say the heart meridian, right? You know that your heart is a channel that runs through the fingertips, that specific point as well. If you can feel that, then you know you're sending a message and communicating on that level deliberately. And so you can do that. Again, this is sort of mental too, right? Because it's not just strictly spiritual. There are things that link external to internal. So if you are touching on those mudras, yes, it can have an impact as you would work with that specific channel that you'd like to work with. You're turning on that channel. And just like that, it can function as an anchor as well. Because let's say everybody agrees then that when you hold your fingers, like let's say this, that you're grounding in and you're focusing. This is for focusing, right? Or like this, focusing. Now, if you're focusing and you use that deliberately, then you will feel more focused. Instantly, you'll feel more focused, but the channel itself will be also linking to the space within you that is going to allow you to feel focused. So it's kind of, I'm not saying it's a paradox at all, it's not. It's related on both ends. And there's a way to describe that. I just can't remember the word for it right now, so I'm saying it that way. Right? But it's related on both ends. The outside feeds the inside feeds the outside. It's a conversation, it's communication. And so using the mudras can really, really help you. Would that be correlated to emotion code? Yes, definitely. Definitely. All right. In that, and I love that you use the expression emotion code. Elaborate on, Cody, if you can, elaborate on where you got emotion code from. I know that's probably a new technique that came about and people call things differently, but what I'm interpreting that is that the emotions lead you towards specific outcomes or the emotions are speaking to you. Yes, the emotions are speaking to us. And yes, if we dive into emotions and we start to decipher what's coming through the emotions, it is a conversation. It's a conversation with ourselves. And a self that is a bit higher, a self that's a bit larger, not a self that's limited by only the thoughts that are in our mind, but a self that's connected to a larger field. Your emotions are actually large, right? It's like a magnetic field in a sense, an electromagnetic field at that. For instance, when a person is extremely angry, sometimes you can feel the waves coming off of them. You can feel anger before a person even says anything. You can feel frustration. You can feel joy too. Some people they don't have to say a word. They could just be there and you're around them and you feel uplifted, you feel happy, you feel connected, right? It's a strong feel, right? We give off feels. And so it's good to pay attention and to know that. So yes, I would say it is related, right? If that's what you're speaking about. And it's a good idea to, if you're interested in that, to go a bit deeper. Find out about meridians if that interests you. Find out about chakras and the relationship between meridians as well. And then you'll see which ones govern that internal field. Now, the chakra system itself, or the system down the center, the energetic system that we're talking about, is going to be sending out information to everything all the time and communicating all the time. The more aware you become of that communication, the more you're able to do, right? You're able to do because you're changing how you're feeling deliberately. You'll be changing the state that you're in deliberately. If you change your state, which changes your self-concept, you will have a different experience, right? So that's the way that you can use that. And again, these are all these layers that we're working with, but they're all linked together. They're always linked together. Nothing is separate. Nothing is without purpose, right? So all of it makes, yeah. Thank you, Cody. Thanks. So that's how we're able to use that, right? We're able to gather the information that we're feeling that is coming in, right? And use that to transform what's necessary within us because we feel something about it, we're getting information. And when we make that necessary switch, then we can put back out a new bit of information that allows the experience to be slightly different. So you can use your intuition to guide you. And this is what most people use their intuition for, right? Most people want guidance from their intuition. They want to be able to make the right decisions, the right choices, to feel good about what they did, and to be able to move forward powerfully and win in life, right? And I know win sounds like a big word, but win as in not always end up in the same situation over and over and be going through the same thing over and over. We want to finally break any type of shackles or anything that's keeping us bound and become more of who we are or express more of who we are. Right? And most of us know ourselves on a deep level as inherently good, inherently loving, inherently caring. That is at the bottom of it all before all the stuff gets pasted on, right? But then when the stuff gets all pasted on, we kind of change our minds about that a little bit. But that's not forever. We can't undo it, and this is a part of undoing it. Right? So let me continue with this line of questioning. If anybody has any other live questions, please bring them forward, and I would be elated, elated to answer them, right? Because this is your Q&A time. I can't believe it's only 5 more minutes for this, by the way. This has happened so fast. I feel like I was talking for like 5 minutes there. Okay, so here we go. We're going on. What role does intuition play in decision making? Okay, I think I just went through that a little bit. Someone asked that question. But I'll go a little deeper into it just for those who might have a similar question. Okay? How can spiritual intuition help in making decisions? I believe it can help, or I know it can help guide in important choices, but alongside rational thinking, as I just mentioned. Because what has happened over time is people think it's either or. Everybody's in this idea that it's either this or this. It's either spirituality or science, right? It's either you feel it and you're deep in your heart space and you're totally connected, or you're in your head space and you don't know anything and you're just assuming and guessing. No, none of that is absolutely true, right? Because as I say, everything has a purpose. Nothing is without purpose. So if nothing is without purpose, then it has to be in some way a relationship or a balance between all of those things to come up with the right answer. It's like when you're doing a project, for instance, you're up to a project, and let's say you want a team and you work on a team. But then you just take the initiative and you do everything on yourself. You take over the creative design, you take over the speaking, you take over the finances, you take over everything, right? If you take over everything, then it's just you. So then the other people are totally invalid. That's really what that is, right? But imagine if you come together as a group, right? This is where democracy and these ideas come in. If you come together as a group The group thinking may very well be of a higher level than your personal thinking. And I'll show you an example of this in life. They gave these people a bunch of jelly beans, you know, the jelly bean game, but a whole bottle of jelly beans. And they asked how many were in it. Now, this was over thousands of people. They asked them how many jelly beans are in there. And each person guessed. Some people guessed ridiculous answers, like answers that just didn't make sense at all, like 50. You could see it's more than 1,000, but they were like 50, right? Some people say 50. Some people say random numbers, like way over the top too. Like some people guess all up in the hundreds of thousands when clearly it was close to 1,000. Some people guess way, way high up there. But what happened was when they came together and they found the mean or the average of all the guesses, they were within one jelly bean of how many was in there, accounting for all the random answers, the really low ones or the really high ones as well, right? So think about that. When you have a group of people come together, you can have a personal perspective that's overruling everything, and that would be one idea. Or you could have that group come together and function together to get that mean answer, to get that answer. And when I say mean, I don't mean aggressive mean as in the average, right? The average answer. And that average would be far closer to truth or far closer to what we really want to express than if it was individual, right? So, what am I really saying by this? That rational thinking, that idea of using all of your system together instead of favoring one part over another would give you a more balanced answer. You'd come from a space of not only feeling, and knocking off any sort of thought or any consideration. And you won't only be in your head, thinking, and thinking based on logic and based on your past and based on all the probabilities and possibilities. All of that will come together. And there are other faculties, by the way, your creativity center and that energy could come into there too. But either way, you come up with a better answer. You come up with a more whole answer, right? So, to answer the question directly, what role does spiritual intuition play in decision making? It plays a huge role because it plays the part of lacing together all of that information and coming up with the best possible answer, which is not necessarily a probability anymore. It's way closer to truth, or is truth itself, as long as too much perception is not involved, right? Because sometimes our perception can filter our answers so that the answer comes to us truly, but then we still go through our perceptors or our field of the past and put it over that, so then the answer seems a bit skewed when the answer that was provided for us by intuition was already clear, right? Sometimes we try to overdo it, we overbake it, as I say, we overcook. So sometimes we don't need to overcook. We just need to get the information in its raw form, run it through the necessary space, and give it as it is. So spiritual intuition plays a huge role in decision making. It plays a huge role, right? It plays a major role. And if you really want to develop that, again, there are ways you could do that. There are practices you can do to do that, just like anything else. It's not like, people learn to become Olympic swimmers or Olympic athletes or anything like that by just thinking about it. They get up and they train, right? They practice, they do the thing over and over. And I'm not saying you can't do it by just thinking, because I firmly believe that is totally possible. But most of us don't believe that's possible. We believe that we have to take certain steps towards getting there. So what favors that part of us is to actually take those steps. If you take those steps, you believe you're doing it. If you believe you're doing it, you're moving closer to it in belief. You're moving closer to the outcome. So you feel better. You feel the shift of state happening, which then leads you to have the outcome. So is it not wise to just join yourself in the discussion, to join yourself in the conversation, to help yourself forward by allowing yourself to go that direction? Yeah, that's just common sense. And that's the same thing as taking action from the past question we had, right? You take action. When you take action, you know you're going there. You trust that you're going there. So you fall deeper into that, right? And you have the experience. So that's quite a bit of questions that were answered in that time, eh? We got in there. Now, if you're a person that knows you want to dive deeper into this stuff, you want to practice this stuff, and you want to become what you really want to become here, what you'd like to become, you want your desire fulfilled, check out Thrive Evolution, okay? It's our program that's structured to do that and much, much more. We can definitely have a conversation about it. You can hit me up on any of these streams that we're here. to contact me regarding that. We can have a conversation, run you through a consultation and see if it's a fit for you, or just have a candid conversation about it if you already know you're in and you want to get in there, right? So let's work with that. I look forward to seeing those of you who have the idea, but sometimes teeter-totter with it, and you want to be here. If you know you want to be here and you want to do this with us, let's have a conversation about it and see what's possible. All right. So it's been great to have this time with you today. All right. That's my Q&A for today. I look forward to seeing you again. If you need to contact us on any of these streams, just put I'm ready or something on the bottom that lets me know that you're ready to have that conversation and we can go forward with it. Okay. It's been great today. Have a grand day. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we will chat soon again. Eternal love and infinite peace.